Hello again, giant fat heads. Is your head starting to pound with the pressure of all the knowledge that we're putting in it? Do you feel like an infant can't hold up the head? The head is so heavy because you're so smart, full of real estate wisdom now. Well, we're going to pressurize the pump a little bit more. We're going to stick some info about the seller's suitable housing contingency in your brain. So, mouthful of marbles. A little bit difficult to wrap your head around, but you got a lot of head, so let's get rapping. You, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, need a place to live. You're selling your home. You need to go and find another residence. You don't want to rent. You're not moving in with family. You don't want roommates. You're going to go buy another house. You cannot, in your circumstances, and in many circumstances of other sellers around the country, buy another house without the proceeds of your current home, without the extra capital above and beyond all the debts that you have wrapped up in that title. You have to access that cash to be financeable, to be bankable, to go and buy another home. So this is basically just the entire Hubbard offer flipped on its head, right? You're looking at this as those buyers, your potential buyers who made you an offer as Hubbard buyers. That's basically you now. You are going and you're going to make a Hubbard offer somewhere else. However, we can't have you being homeless, right? So you make a Hubbard offer to somebody else. Hey, we got to sell our house. It's on the market. We passed inspections, all of these great things. We're making you this wonderful offer. At least that's our intent. Our vision is to do these things. But during the sale of your own home, you can't leave yourself vulnerable to literally being kicked out of your residence because you contractually obligated yourself to a buyer to sell your home by a certain date. So what we're going to do is a contingent sale, a seller's suitable housing contingency. What this means is that we are putting our house out onto market. You don't need no stinking realtor, so you're doing it by yourself. You're following all of the prescriptions, tips and tricks that we made in previous videos. You're getting your house out to market. You're fielding offers. You're collecting offers. And once we've reached, hopefully, that holy grail of the highest and best deadline, you've got all the offers you could possibly hope for. They're all bona fide. You've got all the information you could possibly want from all of these buyers, their loan officers and their attorneys and everything else we've taught you. You're going to then say to those buyers, hey, listen, I'm willing to accept your offer, but you've got to give me a contingency. You've got to tell me that you're going to wait for me to go find another house to buy. And it's suitable housing, characterized as suitable housing. That's a somewhat ambiguous term, a little bit gray, a little bit smushy. Suitable to whom? Who determines how suitable that house is? And that is you, of course, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. If you don't like what's out there, especially in these low inventory environments, sometimes this gets real tricky. If you don't find a suitable home according to your standards, you would go back to those buyers that you are in contract with and tell them, hey, I'm sorry, but you have two choices. I haven't found what I want yet. You can either give me more time and we'll stay in contract. You'll allow me to continue searching on the market. Hopefully I find what I want. Or see you later. Sorry, that's the breaks. This is the contingency I need from you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller or buyer, before we get into contract. This has to be memorialized in the purchase and sales agreement or an addendum to the purchase and sales agreement that I, as a seller, have the right to cancel the contract if I don't find what I want and you don't want to wait for me to find it. Now let's think about this in a practical sense. Let's be pragmatic. What does this mean to a buyer? They're just sitting there holding their junk. They don't know what's going to happen. Just like we described a second ago, low inventory environment. Today in Rhode Island, typical year, every month we'd have something like 5,000 homes on the market each month. Today we have less than 700. It's, many factors less than typical. And you, as a buyer, have to agree to you folks, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, to just cross fingers and wait. It can present a whole host of issues. Number one, let's talk about rate locks. Those buyers, your buyers, generally speaking, unless they're cash buyers, are going to be getting financing. their interest rate is only good for a period of time set by the bank when they make the pre-approval for that buyer. And if that amount of time elapses and the buyer is unable to close on your house because you're still out there messing around in the market looking for a new home, buyer's now got to pay to lock their rate for an extra period of time. In a different market, if interest rates are falling, happy horse. Those buyers are very okay with you waiting. Take as much time as you want. Interest rates are falling. The longer we wait, the better my interest rate becomes as a buyer. But that's not happening right now. We know that. Also, people have lives. Your buyer wants to get into the school district maybe, and it's July. The kid needs to be registered for that school district in a few weeks, and they need to get residency in that school district before they can apply. There's a million different reasons a buyer may not accept this, but thankfully for you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, right now, here in this locality at least, it's still very competitive for buyers. So they may agree, and you may have, generally speaking, the average lifespan of a real estate transaction in which to go find a new home to buy. Now that's what we discussed in previous videos, and you understand. Tell me, say it. 45 to 60 days is your average lifespan of a normal real estate transaction. Maybe you can negotiate before you get into contract with this buyer for an extra 30 days. We're looking at 90 days. Something in the span of, by the time you get past inspections on your own sale and know that this buyer is going to survive the sales process, you wouldn't really want to go out to market maybe before inspections on your own home saying that, like, hey, I got a buyer, it's all good. We're definitely getting to the closing table with this buyer, but you haven't passed inspections yet? Not really. You want to be ironclad. You want your offer, you want your Hubbard offer to be spectacular. So really, you'd like to wait until maybe even appraisal, but you don't have the time, right? You got to get cracking. So you're out there looking, all sorts of problems presented on the other side, like we just talked about with the Hubbard itself. Now your Hubbard offeree, domino effect is a serious crumbling cookie. So you, Mrs. or Mr. Seller, are making a Hubbard offer. Your buyer made a Hubbard offer to you. Now we got 3 homes contingent on one another, right? Your buyer's got to sell their house. You have a seller's suitable housing contingency. You're making Hubbard offers on the next place. My God, Maron. All of the things that potentially could blow up this deal. And now you have 3 parties whose lives are completely dependent on the success of 3 different real estate transactions. I would want a stinking realtor. Guys, me, I'm a realtor. I do this professionally. I would want some help. But you don't need no stinking realtor. Giant, swollen, fat head. You're going to save yourself all of this money. All right, so you get it. You understand the Hubbard seller suitable housing contingency. Now what happens if you don't find what you want and your buyer can't wait? You can't do rate lock extensions. They can't pay for it. They want to get into the school district. Poof, your deal goes by the wayside. Can you go back to those other buyers you had? Maybe. Maybe one of them is still around. You don't know. It could be 30 days from when you accepted that original offer from the Hubbard buyers. Maybe they're not around anymore. Maybe they found houses. Now you got to go back to the market. The optics look like caca. Now the next buyer's like, hey, why'd your deal fall apart? You guys were in contract for 30 days. Was the inspections? No, it wasn't that promise. The inspections went swimmingly. Was it the financing contingency? No, the buyer was bona fide. Well, what was it? Oh, we just couldn't find a house we liked. In 30 days, you couldn't find a house you liked? Your buyers are skeptical that you're going to find one the next time. Now you're having trouble getting back into contract. You really, really don't want your Hubbard and your suitable housing contingency deals to fall apart. And if you ask me, you do need a stinking realtor for this. I mean, guys, this is heavy stuff. Anyway, not trying to convince you, trying to give you the information you need to not need a stinking realtor. So we'll see you on the last episode of this segment in a second. Pieces.